Hey, everybody. This is the She's the Owner podcast. I'm your host, Karen McCarran, and this is episode 135. We're clipping along pretty fast here, I feel like. Sometimes I take a break from the podcast, sometimes I'm on the ball. And since I started working with an assistant who happens to be my daughter, also, if you need somebody, she's bloody incredible. She's keeping me on pace. So this episode is, do you know what to do in order to launch your new business? So I could obviously I teach on this. This is what I teach. So trying to squeeze it in all into a little podcast is going to be challenging, but I'll do my best to give you some tidbits. So when I was 23, I launched, I think I was 23, maybe I was something like that. 23, 24-ish, 23. I launched my very first business called Freedom Event Planners. And here's the thing. I really knew nothing. I mean, I knew less than nothing. I didn't even know. I mean, obviously I didn't know what I didn't know, but I really didn't know much. I knew that I'd seen other event planners doing events and I thought it was cool. I knew that I loved people. I knew that I loved being in a fast-paced environment. Excuse me. And I knew that, there was like something that could be fun. I knew that being an entrepreneur was like something I'd never thought about in the past. And to be honest, when I was starting that business, I still wouldn't have called myself an entrepreneur. I didn't even know really what the hell that meant. I just thought I just don't want to work for somebody else. So I'm going to do this instead. So sorry, my throat's really dry today and I'm trying to not clear my throat 20 times. So I apologize for that. But so what do you do in order to launch your business? So I think after 22 years of being in and out of different businesses and 7 years being in a successful company, here's what I think, if I had it to do it all over again, here's where I think I would land. First thing I would think about is, who am I here to serve? I talk about that obsessively, probably in my program and in my coaching practice and on my social and everywhere. And I talk about it so obsessively because it has to be the number one thing. Like, people who are successful, so I'm going to kind of put it into two camps. There are the men that are successful and the men who really focus on, here's a problem that I can solve. I may not be passionate about it, but I know I can solve it. And so they go down that direction. And a lot of them make a lot of money. But what you'll see happening is down the road, and I'm talking to the women right now who are in their late 30s and older. This is not a conversation necessarily to be had by somebody younger, simply because there's the life experience of doing something you really don't feel passionate about isn't there yet. In your 20s, you still think it's okay to do, or it's not that it's not okay, but you still think that it's like cool and fine to do something. You're not supposed to love what you do to this extent. And in our 20s and 30s, we kind of think, well, this is just what I'm good at, so I'm going to do it. So you're living in the masculine. And it's not until kind of late 30s, early 40s where you're like, wait a minute, this isn't really what I thought this was going to be. And sometimes it's happening earlier nowadays just because of social media and we're open to conversation. So the guys, though, they can do that kind of thing for a while because their hunter mode kicks in, and that's where they can operate fully, right? They have the masculine energy, and that's hunter. And so that's their happy place. So they love doing that. They love building business that way. Women do not. So we do it, but we don't love it. We do it and we don't feel fulfilled. And eventually the men don't either. So if you're doing a business like the content company, right? Like, I definitely was obsessed with who I serve, and I still care deeply about who we serve, but I'm not waking up in the morning excited about who we serve in that company. And that's and I'm going to talk about that in another podcast, but it's one of those things where I had to be obsessed with the woman who I wanted to help. It wasn't until I was obsessed with the woman I wanted to help that it became a lot easier. Like, my job right now is super in flow most of the time. There's parts of my cycle where I'm not in flow, and I recognize that, and I don't flip out about it anymore. Although this past month I've been a little bit, bajiggity. A friend of mine used to say that. And I haven't stopped to think about where I'm hormonally, so I'm letting it kind of fuck with my head a bit, but it is hormones. It's all good. But I'm in flow in this business because I'm obsessed with who I serve. I get new clients because I'm obsessed with getting serving and getting that client, to show them impact. I'm not thinking about all the money I'm going to make. I'm not thinking it's there. I'm conscious of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm still a businesswoman, but I'm not obsessing about having to close, and I'm not obsessing about the money. I'm obsessing about the impact I'm going to have, because if you do that, the feeling in your body is different. Like, you're going to feel differently inside your body when you are in that zone. Like, if you close your eyes, so right now, wherever you are, I mean, obviously, if you're doing something like driving, you're not going to close your eyes, but if you close your eyes and you think, and I think about, I could pick any number of clients I've worked with. Okay. I'm picturing one of them and watching her grow and watching her live the life she wants to live. Doesn't have to be the same life I want. But if I picture her in front of me, I get emotional. I think, oh my God, like, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to show that woman the freedom of making her own decisions around her company and her own economy. Like, I'm there. I am there. I'm not thinking I better close this because I want to do 50 grand this month. Like, that will come, and it takes patience. Trust me. I've had so many dark nights of the soul in the last 6 months around my company. And I finally come back to myself. And here's part of intuition. Intuitively, I knew this is where I would land. And now I'm here again and it feels good. Is it scary still? Am I still conscious of, like, I need to make some sales and that? Of course I am. I would be lying if I didn't have those feelings. But my predominant feeling isn't I have to make money. My predominant feeling is I have to serve. And through that, their money will show up. It just, my biggest thing, and I'm guessing your biggest thing, is patience, right? Like, that's trusting God, trusting universe, trusting source is doing it at the right timing. That's fucking hard. But when you release that control, that's when things start to move quickly. And that's what I'm working on internally myself right now. So being obsessed with who you serve, that's number one. Knowing what the problem that you solve is, you know, like, so many times I hear people say, like, well, I like doing this. Okay, but does anybody need this? Right? Get honest, get curious. I say that all the time, be curious, but get honest about, like, does anybody actually need what you want to do? And again, and typically your client or your customer is the person you were before you created the business, or before you're about to create the business. So, like, I needed a coach like me who could balance masculine and feminine energy inside of the business. And I couldn't find one. I found very masculine energy coaches. And so I knew all the tools and I have all the tools, but I wasn't dipping into my heart to really do that work. And so I had to find it on my own. And then I created it. So my client is me several years ago. My client is me 2 or 3 years ago, to be honest. So find out what did you need before you made your big change or had some massive transition in your life. Figure that out. And know what the problem you solve is, because you solved it for yourself, not because you're looking outside of yourself. Like, I've talked to people I created this really cool platform and, it's this, that, and the other. And I'm like, why? Well, because it's like a cool idea. Okay, great. It's a fucking cool idea. The thing about it is, ladies, is that you will not have the stamina required in order to pull it off if you're not super connected in your heart to the thing. If it's just a cool idea, that cool idea in 2 years is going to flop on its face. I guarantee it. You can fucking, this is episode 135. I'm saying I guarantee your business will flop if you're only doing it because it's a good idea that will make you some money. It's just going to, period. Call it, and I'm saying, and this is the new version of me coming to myself. I say things like that with 100% certainty, because I just know intuitively that's what's going to happen. So it can't just be about good idea makes money. It has to be, what problem do you solve that you have solved for yourself, or that you've seen, that's close to you. The other thing, so those are kind of the top two pillars. I'm not going to go into all of them. Like I said, I could, this is what I teach. This is what I talk about. But think about, the other really important thing is think about the lifestyle that you want out of this business. A lot of times we just say, we just want to make money. I want to make $1 million. Perfect. Why? Why do you want to make $1 million? Is your lifestyle $1 million a year lifestyle? Probably not. You're probably making under 100K right now. So when you're in the beginning of launching and I'm asking you, do you know what to do in order to launch? One of the things that you do amongst, marketing plans and business plans and all the other stuff is think about, what do you want from the business? Like, what exactly is the goal? You want to have, for me, it's a $200,000-$300,000 a year lifestyle. That's a super comfy. So if I make 500 or 600K every year, then I'm, that's a lot. There's a lot of extra in there. And my subconscious will be like, why do I need that extra 300? So you got to make sure you know where you want things to go. And it has to be, I always say this to my clients. It's like, you have to believe this stuff energetically. You can't just say it. It's not just to say it, right? I remember one time I said, I want to do 800K this year. Okay, cool. Why? I had no idea why. My coach at the time was like, why the fuck do you want to make that much money? It's like, I don't know. It sounds like a good idea. He's like, well, that shit's not going to fly. Like you're not going to create that if you don't know exactly why you're creating it. So I did the work. I went and I wrote down where I want to live. I want 2 or 3 properties around the world. Okay, perfect. I want to travel. I want to have this type of car. I want to have these type of experiences. I want to have this type of whatever. I want to do this type of charity. I want to do this type of philanthropy, etc. Now I know down to the dollar what I need to make or what I'd like to make. And so it's a lot easier to make that when I energetically believe it versus just pulling a number out of my ass, like 800K. Right? So get really clear. Like, what does the life you want? What does it cost? And then, work your way backwards. And there's so many other components, right? Like, what are you charging for your product or service? What do you, how many, you kind of do that reverse revenue map. How many, people do I need to bring in and all that shit. But so really what I'll leave you with is the 3 things. Do you know what to do before you launch? These are the 3 things you start thinking about. 1 is your buyer persona. Who do you serve? 2, what problem do you solve? And 3, what kind of life do you want? Those 3 things at least will get the juices flowing so that you're starting to look at things more pragmatically. This is not a feminine energy necessarily exercise. I mean, it is, you dip in your heart to see kind of who, but then you start to map it out. But these 3 parts, if you don't have these 3 parts, in my opinion, it's really difficult to move anything forward. So I hope that was helpful. If I'm going to start reminding everybody at the end of every podcast, please go and leave a review. I would love a 5-star review. It helps me build this podcast so more people can hear it. But yes, iTunes, perfect. Go onto iTunes, whether you're in the US or in Canada, just leave a review. And I appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. Cheers.